went abroad to study, and my boyfriend personally drove me to the airport. However, on the way back, he hit someone. The other party was in the late stages of cancer and deliberately ran in front of the car to extort money but ended up losing their life. My boyfriend, Ethan, being kind-hearted, not only proactively compensated the family but also secretly brought the other party's daughter back home to take care of her. Later, I completed my studies and returned to the country. When the girl saw me for the first time, she panicked and rushed into his arms. I questioned Ethan, but he accused me. If it weren't for taking you to the airport, I wouldn't have killed her mother. We both have to atone for this. I chose to break up and married the foster brother that my grandfather had arranged for me. At the engagement ceremony, Ethan went crazy and wanted to take me away, claiming that I was the only one he had ever loved. I scoffed. Ethan, what makes you think I would still want you? Just as I pushed open the door, I saw Ethan gently wiping the tears of the girl in front of him. The tone he used when saying this was particularly serious. It was just like the time he swore in front of my grandfather that he would marry me. I glanced down at the suitcase beside me. After 3 years apart, I returned home immediately after completing my studies. I even gave Ethan the wrong flight information and returned a day early to surprise him, but I never expected to see this scene. For a moment, I stood at the doorway, unsure of how to react. The girl was already crying uncontrollably. Despite receiving such a promise, she still sat on the sofa weeping. Ethan continued, Sophia, don't worry. Emily is a good person. Besides, we both share responsibility for what happened back then. She will help me take good care of you. The girl named Sophia looked up, her face streaked with tears. She appeared pitiful and even weaker at this moment. But what if she doesn't like me and forces you to choose between us? Ethan, I no longer have a mother. Please don't abandon me. Her voice was filled with extreme sadness, and it almost brought me to tears as well. Ethan's eyes were red, almost as if he was about to kneel down and swear an oath. His voice was indescribably gentle. That will never happen. Sophia, since I promised to take care of you for a lifetime, I mean it. A lifetime? I didn't know who this girl was. I only knew that my boyfriend had just sworn to take care of another girl for life, and that wasn't a good thing for me. So, I directly pushed open the large door with a loud noise. Ethan stiffened slightly and paused for a few seconds before letting go of the girl and turning to look at me. Emily, you're back? The expression on his face was so stiff that it made me feel like I shouldn't have returned. It was as if my presence brought him only surprise and not joy. The person I had longed for was right in front of me. At that moment, I should have immediately opened my suitcase, rushed into his arms, tightly wrapped my arms around his neck, and asked him if he missed me. If there weren't a third person present, I would definitely have done that, even leaning in to kiss him uncontrollably. After 3 years apart, the seeds of longing had taken root in my heart and grown into a towering tree, making my chest ache with how much I missed him. But now, that girl was still nestled beside him. Ethan, who had always disliked getting close to others and resisted anyone but me, had allowed someone else to approach him. I had always thought this was proof of his deep love for me, but now I realized that others could get close too. Perhaps she wasn't just anyone. All my joy at that moment turned into a joke. My heart felt as if it were being pricked by needles, making it hard for me to breathe. I tried to maintain my last shred of dignity and softly said, perhaps I came back at the wrong time? Ethan's eyes instantly filled with panic. He realized it himself. Between the apartment that he and I had already purchased and the other girl pulling at him, along with that solemn promise, it was indeed something that could easily be misinterpreted. It wasn't that I was being unreasonable. He quickly stood up, but he was so anxious that his movements became clumsy. He bumped his leg against the coffee table, making a dull sound. Ethan! The girl exclaimed, her eyes filled with concern, and she hurriedly reached out to help him. Ethan subconsciously dodged her hand, rushed to stand in front of me, and quickly said, Emily, let me explain. It's not what you think. Look at this familiar opening line. The first thing every scumbag says when caught cheating is always this. There's never a hint of originality. When I was 7, my parents died in a car accident. Fortunately, my grandfather was still around, supporting the Emily family on his own and taking care of me. And Ethan. He was the best person to me in this world besides my grandfather. I liked Ethan. From the moment I first had feelings, I was already certain of this fact. And he just happened to like me too. Everything was natural. But in my junior year, I received a letter of admission from a university abroad. I wanted to continue my studies overseas. My grandfather argued with me over this. He said he hoped to see me get married and have children in his lifetime. He also said that the Emily family didn't need me to struggle alone. The Emily family had Lucas, who, as my family's nominal adopted son, would help manage the family business well. All I needed to do was enjoy it all. But I was unwilling. I wanted to pursue further studies and become a better version of myself. At first, Ethan didn't support me either. He didn't want us to be apart. We had always been together since childhood and had never been apart for this long. 3 years could bring so many changes. Later, seeing my determination, he stopped opposing me and instead turned to help convince my grandfather. We made a deal. After I returned from studying abroad 3 years later, I would immediately marry him, and we would never be apart again. We had even prepared our wedding house in advance. I worked hard to improve myself while studying abroad, looking forward to reuniting with him and finally becoming a real family. On that day, with both career and love flourishing, I would be the happiest person in the world. Unfortunately, I was only one step away. He's here again. Are you really not planning to go down and meet him? After Lucas finished speaking, he leaned against the doorframe, staring at me without moving. 3 days had passed since I returned to the country. During these 3 days, Ethan came to my house every day, standing in the yard without coming in, stubbornly wanting to see me. He called dozens of times and sent hundreds of apology messages. He even explained from start to finish about the incident from 3 years ago when he accidentally hit someone, and how, out of guilt, he chose to take care of Sophia. Even if that car accident was an accident, I did end up causing her to lose her only family member. 3 years ago, Sophia wasn't even of legal age. She fell into depression over this matter and even attempted suicide. I couldn't just ignore her. Emily, I see her as a younger sister who needs care. I owe Sophia a life. You are so kind. You must understand my dilemma. I have to repay her with a family member. He rambled on, saying a lot. However, I didn't respond to a single thing. What angered me wasn't his choice to make amends, but what happened in the early morning hours. I compressed all my time and rushed back home, just to see him as soon as possible. Yet the first time I reunited with him after 3 years was to find him and Sophia entangled in my soon-to-be wedding house. It made me feel uneasy. Seeing that I remained silent, Lucas couldn't help but sigh. He walked directly in front of me and, without saying a word, pulled my hand to walk downstairs. Since there's a knot in your heart, let's lay it all out. If there's a misunderstanding, clear it up. If not, beat him up and call off the engagement. Why are you twisting alone? Ever since he was adopted, my grandfather had been teaching Lucas how to manage the company, cultivating a decisive personality that couldn't stand to see me in turmoil. Being dragged by him, I went downstairs and crossed the living room. Just as I stepped outside, I saw Ethan. Dressed in a trench coat despite the biting cold, his lips were trembling from the cold, yet he stood straight at the door. When he saw me, a flicker of joy flashed in his eyes. Emily, you finally agreed to see me. He rushed over, grabbing my hand tightly, refusing to let go. Lucas showed little expression on his face, silently walked back inside, and even remembered to close the door, cutting off my thought of escaping back home. In the yard, Ethan kept saying, I'm sorry. Emily, you have to believe me, I really didn't do anything to betray you. That night, when Sophia and I were in the wedding house, it was because you were about to return, and I wanted to clean the room again. Sophia offered to help, thinking I would eventually introduce you too, so I didn't refuse her kindness. As for that hug, it was just a comfort from a brother to his sister. When Ethan started explaining, his eyes were clear, showing no hint of guilt. He was genuinely without remorse. Having grown up with him, I understood him as well as I understood myself. So, he truly was without remorse. 20+ years of feelings couldn't just vanish overnight. All I wanted was a clear and straightforward explanation from him. Unless he told me in person that he had genuinely developed feelings for someone else. Then, I would let Lucas find an opportunity to stuff him in a sack and beat him up. After that, I would call off the engagement, severing ties between our two families, never to meet again. But if it was all just a misunderstanding, I would also give him a chance to clarify. Just like right now. When he explained, he was completely sincere, and when he talked about Sophia, there was no unusual emotion in his eyes. He really just wanted to make up for a little girl who had lost all her family due to him. Ethan, I haven't lived in that wedding house yet. I don't want strangers I don't know to go in. That was my wedding house, it belonged to me. Okay, I'll reflect on this. This time it was my fault, punish me however you want. I guarantee there won't be a next time. Ethan gently hugged me. His embrace was warm, just like the countless nights before when I cried in fear. He would hold me tightly and keep comforting me. I would fall asleep safely, while he would stay awake all night. Then, the next morning, when I woke up, his eyes were red, and he had severe dark circles. But he still held my hand tightly and said with satisfaction, "It's good. With me here, Emily can sleep soundly." Those memories flashed continuously in my mind, and the emotional void from not seeing each other for 3 years peaked at that moment. I couldn't help but tear up. "Ethan, this is the last time." He smiled. "Okay, Dad, I end the afternoon, Ethan," and I watched a movie in the private theater at home. We rarely enjoyed this moment of tranquility together, but soon, it started to rain lightly outside. As a child, I was particularly afraid of rain and thunder, and I would cry every time. At first, my mother would accompany me, and later, when my mother was gone, it was Ethan who would stay with me all night. And during the 3 years abroad, I gradually became independent. No matter how loud the thunder, I could sleep wrapped in my blanket. I had grown up and matured. Just as I was about to share all the little things from my 3 years abroad with Ethan, before I could say a word, a flash of lightning suddenly illuminated most of the bedroom. Ethan jumped up from the sofa. "What's wrong?" I looked at him in confusion. He stiffened for a moment before slowly sitting back down and wrapping his arms around me. "It's nothing. Just thunder. I was worried you might be scared." I shook my head with a smile. In the 3 years abroad, I spent so many thunderstorm nights alone. I'm not afraid of thunder anymore, and you don't have to worry about it. Once again, before I could finish my sentence, Ethan's phone on the nightstand suddenly rang. After years of feelings, I knew his habits too well. I knew every piece of music he liked, including the ringtones he usually set. So, I knew this was a special ringtone set for someone. Ethan almost instinctively let go of his arms around me and reached for the phone on the nightstand. "Brother Ethan, it's thundering. I'm so scared." On the other end of the line, Sophia spoke almost in tears. Just then, a clap of thunder rang out, and Sophia screamed, followed by static on the phone, cutting off her voice completely. "Sophia. Sophia, don't be afraid. I'll come back to be with you right away." When Ethan realized there was no longer any sound on the other end, he quickly dialed back, but this time he couldn't get through at all. Anxiously, he put on his coat and headed outside. As he stepped out the door, I quickly grabbed his wrist. "Ethan, the family has caretakers. Whether it's the cook or the cleaning lady, the Ethan family employed several caretakers who lived in the house and took care of a young girl. It was part of their duties. There was no need for Ethan to go personally. Sophia is timid and doesn't get along well with those caretakers. She's terrified right now and definitely only wants me. If I don't go back to take care of her, she will definitely cry out of fear." Ethan was so anxious that he stumbled over his words. I found it somewhat amusing. Sophia wasn't a little child anymore. She was no longer at an age to sit on the floor crying for someone to hold her. She's 20 now, not an underage girl. Even if she's scared of the thunder, what does it mean for you, a grown man, to stay with her? He used to protect me. Back then, both my family and the Ethan family were well aware that we would definitely be together when we grew up. Now, he was going to protect another girl. What did that mean? Emily, she's different from you. You have your grandfather and the whole Emily family, but she has lost everything because of me. She has suffered from depression and even attempted suicide. If I don't accompany her, she won't be able to get through it. Different? So the weaker person is guaranteed to receive all the preferential treatment? Ethan and I were childhood sweethearts, a couple already engaged to be married soon, stepping into the hall of matrimony. What did Sophia mean to him, really? I suddenly wanted to know. The thunder outside grew louder and louder. Ethan was visibly anxious. He pulled my hand away, put on his shoes, and opened the door, preparing to leave. I stood at the bedroom door, unmoving, quietly watching his back. Just as he was about to step out, I spoke up. Ethan, if you walk out that door today, it will be over between us. It was the kind of end with no chance for any turnarounds. Ethan paused slightly, then turned to look at me. Emily, you need to understand. Sophia really needs me right now. This is what I owe her. I'll come back tomorrow to apologize to you. I don't want to hear any more of what you have to say today. I quietly watched as his figure slowly faded into the darkness, rushing to see another girl. It was quite sad. But I had already made it clear that there would be no next time. The words I had spoken could not be taken back. This was my bottom line. I took out my phone and sent Ethan a text. Ethan, we are calling off the engagement. 7 words ended my 25-year acquaintance with him. It seemed quite ridiculous when I thought about it, but I was also relieved that it hadn't happened after we got married. At least I still had room for regret. In the evening, as I packed my things to go home, I happened to run into my grandfather. With a stern expression, he called both Lucas and me into his study and began analyzing the pros and cons for us. Emily, I've said it from the beginning. I hope you can find happiness, so I don't oppose you being with Ethan, whom you like. I trust the Ethan family. But if he isn't reliable, then you must marry Lucas. I know it's not fair, but the Ethan family needs someone to help you manage the company. Your uncles are eyeing you. This is the only way out. I understood what my grandfather meant. In short, if I broke up with Ethan, and he could no longer be my support, then I would have to marry Lucas. As someone my grandfather personally trained, Lucas had indeed shown business talents that even Ethan couldn't match. With him managing the Henry Group, no matter how ambitious my uncles were, they would not be his opponents. But he didn't carry the blood of the Emily family. My grandfather valued blood relations. After my parents' accident, he turned gray overnight. He wanted to pass everything in the family to me but knew very well that I wasn't cut out for it, so he devised this roundabout plan. I also agreed with him that if I couldn't end up with Ethan, I would obediently listen to him and be with Lucas. This indifferent man, who showed no interest in anything, was absolutely loyal to my grandfather, so he didn't have much of a reaction regarding marrying me. Lucas's gaze fell on the suitcase behind me, and he said calmly, "So it's really over this time?" I nodded. "There's no better possibility." He responded with an then stood up from his chair. He then took my wrist and stood in front of my grandfather, looking very serious. "According to our previous agreement, now that she has broken up with Ethan, we should start preparing for the wedding." For a moment, my mind went blank. After all, just half the night ago, I was sad about my boyfriend going out to see another girl late at night. Yet by the second half of the night, I was discussing marriage with someone else. This pace. Lucas seemed to sense my hesitation, turning to look at me. "Emily, we're not children anymore. It's important to keep the Ethan group. Do you want your parents' hard work to fall into someone else's hands?" "No, I certainly didn't want that." "Then try to get along with me. At least I can promise you that I will never betray you in this lifetime." Lucas lowered his head, his gaze toward me very earnest. He has always been serious about everything he does, to the point that sometimes I doubt he's just a programmed robot, tireless and unwavering in pursuit of his goals. I looked at him and said, "But you don't like me. Wouldn't it feel unfair to marry me?" Lucas's lips curved slightly as he lowered the hand that was gripping my wrist and enveloped my hand in his. At least we know each other well. We are family, aren't we? I glanced at my grandfather, whose hair had turned completely white. He lost a son in middle age and has endured too much sadness. Even though he has other sons, he still holds on to everything my parents left for me. For this reason, he, who should be enjoying his twilight years, has to navigate the business world. And I, under the protection of him and Lucas, could live so happily. If there were no love and I could only steadfastly do one thing, then being with Lucas, whom my grandfather trusts, to safeguard the legacy my parents left me might also be a happy thing. With that thought in mind, I suddenly made up my mind. I grasped Lucas's hand back and promised him, "Okay, I also promise you that I will never betray you." With the engagement settled, my grandfather, who had originally been frowning, instantly turned into a cheerful old man. In the middle of the night, instead of sleeping, he started thinking about the details of the engagement ceremony. Lucas and I exited the study together. He walked alongside me, and when I looked up at him, he just happened to lower his head to look at me. "Emily." He suddenly called my name. I paused, surprised. He rarely called me by my full name, and his gaze was unusually serious. Lucas bent slightly, leaning toward me, his unique scent wrapping around me. I felt a bit flustered and took 2 steps back, but he didn't stop until he had cornered me. Grandpa saved me, and I swore to never betray him in this lifetime. But I have a bit of temper. Since you've made your decision, don't hesitate. If you're still having doubts, you can tell me before the engagement ceremony begins, and I will help you eliminate your concerns. But once the ceremony is over, Emily, there will be no room for regret. Lucas spoke earnestly, his eyes fixed on me without wavering. The reason he hadn't said these words in front of Grandpa was simply that he didn't want to disappoint him. Lucas gave me a chance to back out, but only if I didn't embarrass the Emily family. Even if I wanted to back out, it could only be before the engagement ceremony started. This man, who shares no blood ties with the Emily family, values the family's honor more than I do. So how could I, the heir who was expected to carry on the legacy, continue to be willful? Thus, the last trace of doubt in my heart vanished. I looked at him with equal seriousness and said, Emily, will never regret it. Ethan hadn't contacted me for over half a month. I took it as him tacitly agreeing to break up, and I thought he was quite decisive, at least not entangling me unnecessarily. As for the infatuation and love from previous years, I would just treat it as feeding it to the dogs. Clearly, Ethan wasn't my destined partner. Grandpa was very happy every day, cheerfully going out and coming back. His assistant and driver followed behind, carrying bags of clothes and jewelry, all for Lucas and me. We were happy to cooperate. After all, it brought Grandpa joy, which was our sincere wish. But soon after, I discovered why Ethan had been completely out of contact. I owned several properties and quite a few shops under my name. Most of them I had rented out, but I kept 1 or 2 that I liked and started my own coffee brand. With some free time, I decided to visit the shop. To my surprise, I saw Sophia there. She was wearing a fitted little white dress, her face pale, and her lips colorless. She looked as if she had been sick. As soon as I encountered her, Sophia immediately stood up, clutching the hem of her dress as if I were a terrifying monster. "Emily, sister," she started with a soft and delicate voice. I didn't dislike weak beauties, but what I couldn't stand was someone who clearly had a clever glint in her eyes yet pretended to be innocent and afraid of everything, like a black lotus flower. We are all women. We can see what kind of person the other is with just one glance. Sophia looked scared at that moment, but the pride in her eyebrows was hard to conceal as she spoke on and on about irrelevant things. "I've been afraid of thunder since I was a child. Brother Ethan was worried about me that night. He didn't mean to leave you. He's really a good person. Knowing that I was scared, he stayed by my bed all night. But I was so useless. The next day I had a high fever. Brother Ethan was so anxious that he carried me to the hospital and stayed by my side for a whole month. Emily, sister, you must be very angry, right? If you're unhappy, you can scold me." None of this is Ethan's fault, it's all my fault for being useless. In 5 sentences, she hinted at 3 important pieces of information. First, Ethan could leave me for her. Second, a man and a woman alone in a room for an entire night. Lastly, Ethan had been at the hospital with her for the entire month he was missing. If I hadn't been emotionally stable, or if I still hoped for this love, perhaps I would have been hysterical at this moment, shouting, "What kind of monster are you?" But, knowing that your body is useless means you should stay home. Not only do you wander around, but you also want to come here and disgust me. Sophia, are you the reincarnation of a puppet? Clearly, the most important audience wasn't present, yet she still pretended to be weak and delicate. Isn't that exhausting? I couldn't react as she had expected, and Sophia's expression faltered, her face twisted slightly. Then, suddenly, she seemed to think of something, reached for the cup of water in front of her, and without a word, poured it over her head. Then she looked at me ominously. "Emily, since you're not stupid, guess whether Ethan will believe you or me." As soon as she finished speaking, Ethan appeared at the door of the shop, holding a bouquet of blooming roses. Sophia then fell into her chair, tears flowing down her face. "Sister Emily, I know you're angry with me. I promise I won't bother brother Ethan anymore. I'll move out tomorrow. No. I'll move out today. I won't be in your way." "Emily, why are you bullying Sophia?" Before Sophia could finish her sentence, Ethan rushed in. He stood protectively in front of Sophia, tenderly wiping the water droplets off her face with a tissue. As for Sophia, in the corner where he couldn't see, she shot me a provocative glance, silently saying, "Look, he cares more about me." I looked at Ethan, who was questioning me. This boy who had vowed to protect me for life as a child was now being someone else's hero, forgetting all those promises he made back then. Well, it's true, we were all just kids back then, and maybe I was the only one who took it seriously. My chest still felt a bit sore, and just thinking of Grandpa and Lucas made me feel like my emotions were all just a joke. Everyone else was working hard to make a living, so how could I be stuck in one place, making a fuss over a little love? That's not who I am. So, in response to Ethan's questioning, I grabbed another cup of water from the table and splashed it onto Sophia's face. "See clearly, this time it's me who did it." That wasn't enough. I gave a glance to the store manager, who had been watching the show from the cash register. She's my friend, temporarily managing this store for me, and she understood my look. She quickly copied a video from the surveillance footage and played it on the large screen in the store. On the screen, Sophia's previously fragile gaze turned sharp as she raised her hand and splashed water onto her own head. Ethan, who had been about to criticize me, suddenly lost his voice at that moment. He tried to reach for me. "Emily, I'm sorry. Sophia is just feeling insecure. I apologize for her, she shouldn't have slandered you. I will teach her slowly so that she won't do it again." Before I could interrupt him, Lucas appeared at my side without me noticing. In front of Ethan, he deliberately held my hand. "No more chances. Ethan, I don't care what kind of brother-sister game this is, whether you want to turn into a sister-in-law or a wife, our Emily family won't care. Just one thing, don't come out here to discuss people again." Lucas's tone was cold, but his grip on my hand was warm. I looked up at him, and he nodded at me. "Grandpa asked me to take you home to discuss the engagement." "What engagement? Who are you getting engaged to? Haven't we already been engaged?" Ethan looked confused, his eyes fixed on our hands, his gaze toward Lucas becoming unfriendly. "Lucas, even though you're Emily's brother in name, please mind your boundaries. After all, you're not a biological sibling." "True, I'm not a biological brother." Lucas nodded and then, under Ethan's gaze, let go of my hand. As soon as Ethan relaxed, Lucas tightened his grip on my hand again, intertwining our fingers. "So let's not act like siblings, but rather as a son-in-law." The moment he finished speaking, Ethan's face darkened to an extreme. The news of my breaking off the engagement with Ethan was actually announced the night I decided to marry Lucas. It was a formal announcement, stating that the marriage alliance between the Emily family and the Ethan family was no more. But no one believed it. All our friends in the circle thought I was deeply in love with Ethan. And despite Ethan having gained a sister over the years I was not around, he still publicly claimed me as his only fiancée. This wasn't just a relationship, it was a marriage between two families. So, no one believed it. Until this meeting at the cafe, Ethan finally realized I wasn't joking. That very afternoon, Ethan's mother came to visit. This was the same Ethan's mother who had once said she would treat me like her own daughter. And during the long time I had lost my mother, she did indeed give me a lot of care and love. But human hearts are naturally biased. Ethan was her only son. So no matter what he did or what mistakes he made, as a mother, she could never bear to criticize him. Just like at this moment, Ethan's mother appeared before me, full of anger. She pointed at me, her words filled with disappointment and rage. "Emily, I've treated you like my own daughter all these years. But how have you treated my son? He's just too kind-hearted, which is why he took in Sophia. Yet you have to escalate the issue, saying he abandoned her and then turning around to marry this orphan of unknown origins beside you?" It was obvious she looked down on Lucas. Lucas had been raised very well by Grandpa. Even though he was furious at that moment, he still maintained a surface-level politeness. Despite his efforts for me and the kindness from years past, he held back his anger. But no matter the reason, Lucas was always a member of my Emily family. So how could anyone bully him? I stepped in front of him, looking at Ethan's mother with a tone I rarely used, which was unusually firm. "Lucas is not an orphan, he is a member of the Emily family, and will be for life." Ethan's mother seemed enraged by my words. "Emily, you've disappointed me too much. Just for a Lucas, you decide to break off the engagement? What do you think our Ethan family is? Ever since he learned you were going to marry him, he has been getting drunk at home every day, sending you messages that you don't reply to, and when he tries to see you, you ignore him. I had to swallow my pride and come to ask you what you really think." I smiled calmly, then, in front of her, held Lucas's hand. "As you can see, this is my fiancé, Lucas." In the end, Ethan's mother was so infuriated that she left. Before she left, she couldn't resist throwing out some harsh words. "Fine, Emily, you're ruthless enough. If that's the case, then there's no need for me to consider your parents. The Emily family and our Ethan family don't have to cooperate. We'll see how you deal with your uncles and cousins in the future." Great, she was threatening me with the company again. Lucas tightened his grip on my hand and gave me a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, I'll help you protect the Emily family. I won't let anyone take what belongs to you." I trusted him, just like I trusted Grandpa. In this seemingly united yet fractured family, after losing my parents, the only people I could rely on were Grandpa and Lucas. Just like when I was a child, when Grandpa fell ill from the heavy blow, the uncles and cousins who had always been kind suddenly revealed their ugly faces after my parents' death, insisting that I give up my claim to the company. It was Lucas who stood in front of me, saying that he would protect me for life, no matter what it took, for my parents and Grandpa. He was very faithful to his promises, allowing me to grow up without worries. Memories from my childhood flooded my mind, and I suddenly felt that my past self was quite unreasonable. Back then, my mind was filled with thoughts of Ethan, while I forgot there was a boy who had always steadfastly protected me. I felt inexplicably sad, but I still forced a smile and gently hugged Lucas. "Even if there's no romantic love between us, I will do what a good wife should do. I will never betray you, and I will never let you down." Lucas didn't move. In this position, he asked me, "Emily, do you really not like me at all?" I slowly released him, treating his question as casual. So I pinched his face playfully and said seriously, "Not really, for example, I really like this face." That wasn't a lie. Lucas was the most handsome boy I had ever seen. Even if he never debuted as a star, he would definitely become famous in an instant. Lucas smiled and then pinched my face in return. "Liking this face is good enough. Emily, since we've decided to get married, can you try to like me, okay?" For some reason, my heart suddenly started beating rapidly. Although he said this without any emotional fluctuations, it inexplicably made me feel flustered. It felt like he was indirectly confessing, and I was afraid of misinterpreting it, which would be quite embarrassing. Lucas seemed to guess what I was thinking and suddenly smiled broadly. Maybe you guessed right? Guessed right about what? Guessed that he had long had other intentions for me? This thought didn't last long. My grandpa was never very reliable in his actions. For example, he thought that my marriage to Lucas was a done deal. So, intentionally or unintentionally, he tried to set us up on dates, organizing candlelight dinners at home time and again, all while wearing a pair of old reading glasses and meticulously planning everything himself. The old man had a good heart, and if I expressed any unwillingness, I would immediately pout and lean back on the sofa, starting to reminisce about the old days, and before I knew it, tears would flow. He was too much, I couldn't deal with it. So, Lucas and I once again finished a candlelight dinner that Grandpa had carefully prepared at a hotel and drank quite a bit of wine. Grandpa had given a heads up beforehand, saying that this wine was his collection. And if Lucas and I didn't cherish it, he would cry while holding Grandma's portrait. Lucas and I were a bit tipsy, cuddled together on the sofa, watching a movie carefully selected by Grandpa. It was quite intense. Neither of us dared to move, afraid something would happen. But he spoke first. Emily, do you remember the scene when we first met? I nodded. I certainly wouldn't forget that. Lucas had actually been in poor health as a child, and it could be said that he was quite ill, which was why his biological parents abandoned him in the hospital. He was mature for his age and had once tried to climb onto the balcony to commit suicide. It was my parents who happened to encounter and save him. Then Grandpa made the decision to adopt him. Unfortunately, before the paperwork could be completed, my parents were in a car accident. Originally, it was agreed that he would be my brother, but all the family issues surfaced, and Grandpa was exhausted. Lucas displayed enough commercial talent, so Grandpa changed his mind and decided to have him be my childhood husband. Lucas was a very sentimental person and had no objections to this arrangement. Therefore, during our first meeting, he gave me a jar full of folded stars that he had worked hard to make, saying he hoped that from then on, I would be safe, smooth, and happy. At that time, losing my parents was already very sad, and I inexplicably ended up with a childhood husband. So, I didn't take a liking to him and even knocked over that jar of stars. But seeing his hurt expression kept me awake that night, and I sneaked out to the yard to pick up the stars one by one in the dark. In short, the memories of our first meeting weren't pleasant. Listening to my words, Lucas suddenly smiled gently. At that time, I thought, this little wife has a bit of a temper, I'd better be a little accommodating. I actually wanted to pick the stars back up, just in case you like them later. But before I could go down, I saw a small figure crouched in the corner, picking up the stars one by one, while cursing at me, saying things like, Lucas is so stupid. If you want to please her, just bring some food, and with so many stars, folding them hurts my hands. He paused for a moment, then suddenly sat up straight, staring at me intently. At that time, I thought, my little wife is actually worried about me. As soon as he finished speaking, the previously calm atmosphere was abruptly shattered. The vague speculations in his affectionate gaze provided me with the answer I sought. The sound from the movie was loud, and the scenes were intense. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the room grew increasingly ambiguous, and Lucas's gaze was so gentle it felt almost tangible. He reached out to twirl the ends of my hair, and due to the amount of red wine we had drunk, the corners of my eyes were slightly flushed. He spoke softly, Emily, will you like me? The moonlight was just right, and the person in front of me was also just right. Everything was perfect. So, it felt like a natural progression, and we spent a passionate night together. When I woke up, the sun was already bright, and my body ached terribly. Lucas was propped up on one hand, idly playing with my hair, and when he saw I was awake, he leaned down and kissed my brow. This time, you really can't run away. At the door, a little old man had sneaked in, knowing that Lucas and I hadn't left the room all night, and he was smiling broadly. In the end, the engagement was directly cancelled and changed to a wedding. The preparations had already been made. Lucas had even specially commissioned someone to handcraft a wedding dress for me long ago. He knew all my preferences, so he personally designed the wedding dress, perfectly suiting my tastes. Looking at myself in the mirror, I still felt a little dazed. I originally thought I would be with Ethan for a lifetime. Unexpectedly, my lifetime with him was very short. And my lifetime with Lucas has just begun. The wedding venue was lively, with Grandpa inviting all our relatives, friends, and business partners, including members of Ethan's family. But Ethan didn't show up. Ever since he learned I was going to marry Lucas, he had been squatting outside my house every day. Grandpa couldn't stand it any longer and picked up a stick to chase him away. If he couldn't come, he would send me messages every day. I always blocked him directly, but he frequently changed his phone number. Every day, I still received several harassment messages. Ethan started sending texts instead. Emily, we promised to be together for life. Why aren't you keeping your promise? Sophia is just a sister. What happened back then was clearly our fault. I even repaid what I owed you, just to relieve your psychological pressure. Why are you still unhappy? Emily, I really only have sisterly feelings for her. Don't marry Lucas. We promised to be together for life. I swore at your parents' grave that you would marry me. We are meant to be together. Emily, I don't believe you can forget me so quickly. On the day of the wedding, I will come to interrupt it. As long as you have me in your heart, will you come with me? The last message came the night before the wedding. Lucas happened to see it, and he was so angry that he upgraded the security system at the wedding venue overnight. After thinking for most of the night, he quietly woke me up and said he had removed all the security systems. I asked him why. He said, I'm afraid you'll regret it. I smacked his head and pointed to the wedding photos that had already been taken. We're getting married tomorrow. Stop thinking about unnecessary things and get some sleep. The wedding went relatively smoothly. It started smoothly. Grandpa brought me up to the stage and handed me over to Lucas, and I smoothly said, I do. But ultimately, we didn't smoothly exchange rings. Because Ethan burst in. He was dressed in a very formal suit, slowly walking toward us under the spotlight, then took out a proposal ring from his pocket and half-knelt in front of me. Emily, I told you I would come to interrupt the wedding. As long as you're willing to leave with me, we can immediately go get our marriage certificate. I promise I will never let you down. I will treat you well for the rest of my life. Will you marry me? There was no cheer from the audience, only expressions of disbelief. After all, when I announced my breakup, I specifically stated the reasons. Everyone had also witnessed my weak sister at home, so it was quite embarrassing for him to feign deep feelings now. I ignored him and turned my gaze to Lucas. What are you hesitating for? Hurry up and put the ring on me. We were already at this stage. Lucas seemed to finally react, smiling as he put the ring on my finger. Ethan's expression was still unpleasant. He seemed confused, not understanding why I would choose Lucas. Emily, we are clearly meant to be together. You've liked me since you were little. I only took in a girl, how can you be so heartless? I scoffed. Under the guise of kindness, you do what you think is just. I won't be touched by your so-called kindness, I just think you're really foolish. Sophia's mother, clearly suffering from late-stage cancer and lacking funds for treatment, thought of creating a scene in the street to gain compensation. Even if it cost her life, she could exchange it for some compensation for her daughter. Surveillance footage clearly showed that Sophia was the one who ran into her. Even if she was compensated out of humanitarianism, that should have been enough. But Ethan insisted on adopting her, and not only that, but he also couldn't distinguish boundaries and turned around to blame me for being too heartless. Ethan, do you think you're some kind of world-saving saint? Trying to save every monster and ghost? This wedding was still not going smoothly enough. Even though we had exchanged rings and announced the ceremony complete, Ethan was in front, and Sophia rushed in from behind. This seemingly fragile girl was also wearing a white dress, crying like a rain-soaked pear blossom. She grabbed Ethan's arm and confessed at the wedding venue, "It was you who took me in. I was so delighted the first time I saw you. "Ethan, it's okay if Emily doesn't cherish you. You still have me, I will always love you, and no one will love you more than I do." Ethan looked shocked and pushed Sophia away. "But I only see you as a sister." In front of everyone, Sophia gathered her courage to confess, thinking that the other party had feelings for her too, so she poured out her love. "If you don't like me, why did you take me in, knowing that my mother was deliberately causing a scene? If you don't like me, why are you so good to me? If you don't like me, why did you leave Emily to come back and accompany me? If you don't like me, why did you give me the illusion that I am so important to you?" By the end, Sophia was almost hysterical. Ethan still looked oblivious. He opened his mouth and said seriously, "Because I see you as a sister." Sophia suddenly fell silent. She ran out like she was mad, saying as she ran, "Fine, then never care about me again, even if I die." Hearing this, Ethan hurriedly followed her. The two of them left the wedding venue one after the other, and everyone watched the commotion, ready to continue the feast. I watched their retreating figures, unable to help but shake my head. Foolish. Sophia was too emotionally agitated. She ran into the street without noticing the traffic light changes, directly rushing into the flow of cars. In the end, she was hit by a large truck and flung away. But she was luckier than her mother. She didn't die on the spot, but ended up paralyzed from the waist down and would have to lie in bed for the rest of her life, unable to move her arms. Ethan witnessed this scene firsthand. He stood there in a daze, suddenly slapping himself. "It's my fault, it's all my fault." Ethan once again blamed everything on himself, although it was indeed caused by his actions. Sophia underwent several surgeries but still couldn't recover to her original state. She could only lie on the hospital bed every day, needing someone to take care of her for everything, from eating to using the bathroom. Ethan took it upon himself to handle everything, doing everything personally. Sophia repeatedly asked, "If you don't like me, you don't have to treat me this well. You shouldn't treat me this well." Ethan seemed to not understand at all. He replied, "You're like this, I have a responsibility. You are my sister, and I will always take care of you." It was a heart-wrenching situation for a woman who had completely fallen in love. Ethan took care of her year after year, and those girls from his social class heard about it. No one was willing to form a relationship with the Ethan family, but Ethan was their only son. Ethan's mother, angry, didn't want her son to be delayed by Sophia. She intentionally cut off their financial sources and then drove them out of the house. Ethan initially did everything himself, but there were some things that were inappropriate for men and women to handle together. He was unable to change her clothes in time, or because he was too shy to look, he didn't clean her properly, resulting in a large area of Sophia's body becoming infected. Ethan finally became scared. In his eyes, there was undisguised disdain and disgust. He finally agreed to his mother's request to hire a nanny to take care of Sophia while he went home to inherit the family business. But his reputation had long been tarnished. Ethan's father was a man who valued profit greatly. While Ethan was tangled up in all these romantic affairs, his father was repeatedly disappointed. Eventually, those long-lost illegitimate children began to return home one after another. The Ethan family quarreled endlessly. Ethan was pressed down hard by an illegitimate child who was even 2 years older than him. Though he was called an illegitimate child, he was actually the son of Ethan's father's first love, conceived during their romance. However, in the end, Ethan's father chose to marry another woman for the sake of his career. His first love was heartbroken and died young, so that man hated the Ethan family intensely. His goal was to destroy the business empire that Ethan's father had built with his own hands. As for me, I am now the head of the Emily family. Those uncles and relatives still haven't given up. Under the guise of caring for me, they try every day to drive a wedge between Lucas and me, claiming he is only after my wealth and company. To this end, they resorted to some despicable tactics, including sending attractive young men my way. Angry, Lucas found a secluded spot and put those uncles in burlap sacks, beating them one by one. Oh, Ethan didn't escape either. They all got beaten while wrapped in burlap sacks. Lucas vented his anger and then chased away those young men one by one, then came to my side and said, "We promised to never betray each other, never separate." I smiled. "I've never forgotten."